Chapter 4, The Camping Trip, Part 1, Around the Campfire. Around the campfire, the hour will strike. When you discover your heart's desire, will you admit it truthfully to the one that you like? Or will you turn back with a wistful smile and wait for another little while? Sakura-chan, Tomato-chan, did you hear about the autumn field trip? I'm so excited. Since we were in middle school now, we get to go on a camping trip to the mountains, Nako exclaimed, clasping her hands. Ah, wouldn't it be so spooky in the nighttime? Sakura's sweat dropped. Toya still teased her for being scared of ghosts. A bad thing about Toya regaining his powers was that he had the power to communicate with spirits, and he teased her endlessly about it. One would expect that he would be more mature, since Yukito and he finally entered college, but no. Her brother still teased her recklessly. After all, he was Toya. She didn't know exactly how much Toya remembered about the cloud card business, though Yukito seemed to show no signs of remembering it. She knew that Toya still had some remembrances, not that he showed it. Was it time that Yue-san should awake once more? No. Yukito was finally relaxing now that he forgot his true identity. I thought all my troubles ended from Iro-kun, but it's not true. It's just not easy being a Sakura card mistress. Staring pensively out the window from her seat, she did not feel any joy from the news of the field trip. Just then, the classroom door burst open. In came Melanie, panting and dragging Syaoran with her. Oh, made it just in time. Good morning, Melanie-chan. Lee-kun. Good morning, Melanie said. Syaoran overslept again. Did not. You were the one who took so long getting dressed. Tomei and Sakura laughed. Then Sakura exclaimed, Oh yes, Lee-kun, this is your sweater. I washed it since we got it so wet last time. Sorry, I forgot to give it back to you for several weeks. Actually, Toya had been suspicious of it and stole it. Luckily, Sakura had sneaked it back when Toya was out. He would have donated it to charity, or burnt it, if she hadn't. Thank you, Lee-kun. When Sakura handed back the neatly folded green sweater, he said, Oh, I totally forgot about it. Syaoran's sweat dropped when Melanie narrowed her eyes. Luckily, this sweater was not one he bought himself. Somehow, he had really bad luck concerning lending clothes to Sakura, since Melanie always showed up at the most inconvenient times. It didn't help that Melanie's first meeting with Sakura was when she was at his house and wore the t-shirt that she had bought him. Out of all the shirts he had, Wei had to give her that one. Ugh, what a life. Class, the sensei announced. As we know, our grade will be granted an autumn field trip. Immediately, the class bolted up. Next week, we will take a hiking trip to the mountain and camp out. A murmur ran through the class, and everyone started whispering and cheering. They were all excited about the endless weeks of hard studying. Syaoran muttered, Oh no, not again. Curiously, Melanie asked, Why? What's the matter? Aren't you excited about the field trip? Excited? Yes, very excited. Don't you even know that every time we go on a field trip, some sort of trouble occurs? A bead of sweat ran down the side of Sakura's head. Syaoran's words reminded her of this skating trip, the courage testing, and every other imaginable trip. Oh, maybe I should bring costumes and my video camera. Do you know, my mother finally bought me that mini microchip video camera, Tomoe exclaimed enthusiastically. The sensei tried to continue over the noise. So, the first day, we arrive on the bus and find a camping spot and prepare our tents. Then we will have some fun activities. The next day, you will be assigned hiking groups of 5 to trek the mountain and record specific nature assignments. Finally, on the last day, we will pack the bus and the bus will pick us up. By this time, nobody was listening to him. He smiled at the excited class. Hoi! What if there's a ghost in the wood? Sakura cried. Nako's eyes glinted. Don't you know, Sakura-chan? Many years ago, a class went into the same camping trip. Well, they started off all right at the beginning, But in the end, one group ended up missing. They searched everywhere for that missing group, but they were found nowhere. Not even their bones were found. It was concluded that they got lost and wandered off until they faded without any trace into the forest and became... By this time, the usual crowd of people had gathered to listen, and they all tilted forward at the pause. And those students who were tired and worn out faded into ghost! A gasp ran out. Some people who stopped by the forest claimed to have seen the ghost. Some say that they were dressed in rags and called out, "Save me!" While others say that the ghosts take over people who stay overnight to get revenge for not being saved. Well, it's true that people go to the mountain and never come back. By this time, Sakura's teeth were chattering. Melanie clutched at Syaoran's arm, saying, "Syaoran, I don't want to go. Let's not go. We can get notes saying we're not allowed to sleep outdoors or something." Nako muttered, "The story has better effect if it's told at the mountains in the nighttime." Takashi was nodding. Yes, a great story. It's almost as good as my story of how..." Before he could continue, Chiharu bonked him on the head. "Ouch! I have a story of a bad-tempered old witch who could not accept the fact of the existence of a genius." Sakura smiled at the usual chattering of her close friends. Tomeo then murmured, "Well, I hope we get to choose our own camping partners." Syaoran groaned. Ugh, he could just imagine the amount of privacy he was going to be getting in the next few days. Finally, it was the day before the camping trip. The sensei read, "Well, we have arranged the groups for the tents and also for the hiking groups. It is possible that the same people might be in both of them. We tried to include friends as well as other students who you may not know but would like to maybe get closer with." Another sensei started to read out the list. Some students cheered when they heard their names. Others groaned. The classes downstairs wondered what the commotion upstairs was. Kinomoto Sakura, Daidoji Tomeo, and Lee Mei-lin. Sakura and Tomeo squealed. They were so lucky to be camping partners. Mei-lin sighed in relief because she was stuck with the people she knew. Yamazaki Takashi, Lee Syaoran. Syaoran was about to sigh in relief. And lastly, Chain Eran. Syaoran's heart dropped to his foot. God, no! Not with the creepy prince addict. The sensei continued. "Well, I hope you all get along with each other. Now we will read out the hiking groups." He started reading out the list. The last group was Daidoji Tomeo, Lee Mei-lin, Chain Eran, Chain Erika, and Lee Syaoran. Wait, we have one leftover person. Kinomoto Sakura. It can be a group of 6. Tomeo felt so glad that she would be able to tape Sakura at all times. Syaoran versus Eran. How about Syaoran and Erika? Eran and Sakura. The twins had settled in with the class almost surprisingly fast and were quite popular now. Eran and Erika certainly had some sort of knack of charm. Ugh, double bad luck. Eran in 2 groups. Syaoran started to doodle on his paper. "That's very good, Lee-kun," Tomeo exclaimed. Sakura examined the sketch and said, "Yeah, I never knew you could draw." Syaoran raised an eye. He had sketched out a woof. Thanks. Iro had been better at drawing than he was. Of course, Iro wasn't Iro, but Clow Reed. Still, he broke his pencil lead. He'd been pressing on it too hard. Of course, it was the past, but when he thought about those times... Syaoran glanced sideways at Eran. Great. Now I have a second Iro. At least Iro didn't mean bad. I know I've seen Eran someplace, but where? Syaoran didn't know about the spell cast on him that veiled him. It would be ages before he finally figured out Eran and Erika were the legendary figures that his father had to fight off. "No, Kiro-chan, you can't come. I would love to take you, but there's no place for you to hide." Sakura was busily packing the night before the camping trip into her hiking bag. Next, Kiro-chan was reading out the camping checking list for her. Flashlight, sleeping bag, water bottle. Just then Fujata entered the room. Smiling as always, he gently said, "Do you need help packing?" Kiro-chan quickly dropped into the bag. I'm fine, Oto-san. Thank you, though. I'll miss you while I'm away. Carrying the water bottle in, Toya asked, will you miss me? Here, Kaiju. You'll get thirsty if you scream there as much as you do here. I'm not a monster. Fujata smiled. Of course you aren't. Hey, Kaiju, are you too old to be taking dolls to a trip? Toya held up Kiro, dangling him by one leg. I must have put him in by mistake. Snatching Kira-chan away, Sakura hid him behind her. Kiro sighed in relief. Well, don't get lost in the mountains. I did when I was in middle school. What happened? Nothing. Really, no ghost. Of course, we thought there were ghosts at the time. Just then the phone rang, and Sakura didn't get to ask how they were found. Finally, the classes were on the buses and on their way to the mountains. Did I bring everything? Tomeo pondered as she rummaged through her bulging bag. Sakura, who sat next to her as usual, laughed. What would we need? We have to make the best of the use of natural surroundings. Rika-chan, you look happy. I am, Rika smiled. Tarada-sensei was now teaching in middle school, so he was one of the teachers supervising the trip. Too bad he wasn't their class teacher. Maybe next year. Maylin wailed from across the aisle. Oh, I don't want to go. Naku, who sat next to her, said, Don't worry, the ghost won't come out unless you are lost. Just make sure you don't get lost. Please, no ghosts, Sakura wailed in unison with Maylin. The students filed out of the school bus and climbed up a part of the mountain. The sensei then announced, Here, we are going to set up our tents first. Go into your groups and try to set up the tents on your own. If you have any trouble, come to me or any of the teachers in charge. Soon, they were all busy at work. Maylin, grab that end. Tomeo, steady it. Here, I got this, Sakura said as she hammered the pole and pulled it tight. She brushed her veins from her face. Finally, Sakura's group set up the tent, but after a few seconds, the tent poles wavered, then collapsed again. Oh no, they all sighed in exasperation. They had to start all over again. At least the others were having just as much trouble. Syaoran scowled fiercely. Eran was getting on his nerves as he continuously flashed smiles at everyone. He didn't even want to think about sleeping in the same tent as him. He hammered down on the pole so hard that the tent tilted over and collapsed over him. People around him tittered, and Eran laughed and offered him a hand. Untangling himself from the canvas, Syaoran brushed it off and stomped off into the woods. There, he climbed up the tallest tree and stayed there for privacy. Of course, Maylin searched for him as usual. At last, everyone's tents were set up and all their sleeping bags snugly inside. The sun began to sink low. Several groups combined to sit around a fire. They were roasting marshmallows as they chattered. Sakura patiently turned her stick around and round and round and round so that the marshmallow would not burn. Mizuki-sensei hated marshmallows. Suddenly, her marshmallow caught fire and Sakura was petrified. Wait! My marshmallow's burning! Shake it! Hey, watch where you wave it, stupid! Syaoran dodged as Sakura waved it dangerously near his head. Sakura instantly shook the stick and the fire died off, smoking. Oh, look at my marshmallow. It's all burnt and black. I can't eat it. Eran offered Sakura a perfectly browned marshmallow on his stick and said, Here, you can have mine. I don't really care for sweets anyway. Arigato, Eran-kan. Sakura blissfully ate the marshmallow, crispy on the outside and gooey on the inside. Syaoran was fuming so much that he did not even notice that his own marshmallow had burnt to crisp until the whole stick fell apart. You burnt yours! Here, have mine! Maylin said and shoved a burnt one into his mouth. Syaoran choked and burnt his mouth. Water! He gasped. Quickly, he grabbed a bottle of water and gulped it down. Hey, that's mine! Arika exclaimed. Syaoran choked again and spit the water back into the bottle. Ew! Everyone exclaimed. Takashi began to clear his throat. What we are doing here will all be very valuable experience. In ancient tribal day, boys coming of age were sent off into the wilderness with nothing, absolutely nothing, to survive for a year. They did survive in the wilderness. They were accepted as respected and courageous men, and if not, they were failures left to die. It was almost like how family clans sent their boys to accomplish a mission vital for their family, and if they failed, they were disgraced. is black sheep. Syaoran groaned inside. He had experience. Of course his mother didn't show it, but she had been disappointed in his part of getting the cloud cards. I am not a failure, or so I think. I am a failure. Was all that training in vain? Whatever would my father think of me? You helped Sakura, that's all, but it may amount more than anything. Fiddling with the zipper of his khaki jacket, he stared into the crackling fire. The boys had khaki jackets made out of weatherproof material, white shorts, and tan pants. The girls had similar khaki vests with white shirts, tan shorts, and white knee socks. They all had matching hats and bags. Takashi was about to continue a family honor, but Chiharu said, "Lies! Stop making things up." Then Syaoran interrupted. "Nope, it's all true. My family used to have things like that." Looking at Syaoran, he asked, "You're from a Chinese family, aren't you? Don't you have missions like that? If I know correctly, you are from the ancient lineage of the Li clan." The ancient lineage of the Li clan, descended of Cloudreed. Syaoran sighed again, straight into the depths of the blazing red. Sakura shot him a look of sympathy. She would have gladly given him all the cloud cards, but he would not accept it, and it was not possible. Takashi exclaimed, "Wow! I think I'm gonna like you, Chain-kun. There was nobody who understood me since Iro-kun left." By that time, it was getting late in the night, and it was completely dark. Nako said, "Now, let's tell ghost stories." She held her flashlight underneath her face, creating a ghoulish effect. "No, let's play Truth or Dare," Tomeo said. This was more agreed on, since most of the girls shrieked from the idea of ghosts, especially in the mountains during the nighttime. "Does everyone agree?" They nodded. "Lee-kun?" "Whatever," he mumbled. "Who goes first?" Rika asked. "How about rock, scissors, paper?" Chichiru suggested. They did it, and they singled out Meilin. "No, I don't want to go first." "Nope, you gotta. Now everyone who tells a lie or does anything dishonest will be haunted by the ghost of this mountain. I'll ask first." Chiharu smiled devilishly. "Truth or dare?" "Truth." "Okay. What do you most want to say to Lee-kun? Remember, the ghost." "Hey, that's stupid," Syaoran exclaimed. He hoped Meilin would not make a fool of him as always. Meilin quivered for a moment. Long ago, it would have been something like, "I love you, Syaoran." But now, she murmured, "Syaoran, do not hide yourself from the truth. You try not to be a fool, but you are a fool. She has a name, you know." "Hey, that's not fair," broke in Nako. "You are making no sense." Chiharu said, "It is fair. She did say it. Syaoran, do you have any clue what she's talking about?" Syaoran said in a soft but deadly tone, "Yes and no. This is a stupid game." His tone kept anyone from badgering him on the issue. Meilin said, "Oh, okay. Now I said it. I picked Chiharu-chan to go next." "I picked Dare," Chiharu said. Tomeo said, "Go up to the one you like and tell him that you love him." "I don't like anyone," Sakura said, sitting on the damp ground and hugging her knees. "That's kind of harsh. How about just saying why she loves him without saying who it is?" Everyone agreed. Chiharu turned red and stammered, I love you because..." She looked down and said, "Though you don't look at me as anyone but an annoyance and a pain in the butt, I still like you because you were my friend for a long time and you were always there. I like you, even if you have so many odd faults," she added silently. "And I like you, even if you named the bear I gave you Suwama and not Chiharu." Sakura sighed, as clueless as ever. "That's so sweet. Whoever it is will be warmed if they hear it." "Yamazaki-kun next." "I take Dare also," Takashi said. He opened one of his rarely opened eyes to look at Chiharu, who was really red, and smiled one of his innocent smiles. Syaoran smiled. "I dare you to go up to the girl around the circle that you like best and kiss her. Syaoran muttered, "You'll never do it." Takashi laughed and said, "I'll do it." He went up to the surprised Chiharu and gave her a peck on the cheek. She turned into a tomato. Takashi then said, "In France, they kiss friends every time they meet each other, and they think it's normal. So I chose Chiharu-chan because I know her the longest." Chiharu felt a trifle disappointed, but was still blushing. Syaoran murmured, "I meant a kiss on the mouth," but no one heard him. Sakura-chan's turn. "Hoi, do I have to?" "Yes," everyone shouted, except for Syaoran, who was absent-mindedly drawing Chinese letters on the ground with a brittle stick, muttering, "Fire, water, wood, earth." Rika asked, "So what should Sakura-chan's dare be?" Takashi asked, "What is your deepest, darkest secret?" Dismayed, Sakura stammered, "Of course, her biggest secret was the business about being a Sakura card mistress and all, but there was no way she could say that, and also she couldn't lie because maybe it was superstition, but if one lied around the campfire, they would be cursed." "Hoi, isn't that intruding privacy?" Tomeo asked to defend Sakura. "No, she must say the truth. Everyone's supposed to," Erika said. Being at a loss of what to say, Sakura held her breath. Then she gazed at Syaoran, was writing in the dirt. To her surprise, she could still read the Chinese characters because of the spell he had cast on her before. When she read it, she gasped. That was it. He was trying to help her out and had written, "Tell something about Yukito-san. It's a part of the bigger secret." Taking a breath, she began. "Well," she cleared her throat. "There was this older guy that I used to imagine I was in love with. I liked him for several years, though I did not know why. I found out that he was more than who he was, but I still liked him. Finally, I confessed my feelings for him, and he rejected me. He said that my feelings for him were only like feelings for my dad. He said that there would be someone else who would be my first one. At first I was crestfallen, but after a while it didn't matter anymore because someone was always there for me and helped me feel better." She broke off strongly. It had been so long since she had thought about that incident. At least she hadn't been lying, since the whole thing was part of the bigger secret. Yet I didn't mean to say the last part. It hurt her since she had said it so strongly and uncaring. I guess that is a big secret still, one I will always remember. In a flashback, she remembered about Syaoran comforting her when she was crying so bitterly about her rejection from Yukito-san. "No, Sakura, stop thinking about it." "So did you find your first person that you loved?" Chiharu asked. Sakura smiled sadly. "I don't know. I used to think that I did, but I'm totally clueless now." "Of course you'll find someone, Sakura-chan," Tomeo exclaimed. "Well, Lee-kun next." "Do I have to do it?" "Yes," everyone exclaimed. "Truth or dare?" Syaoran thought. Absent-mindedly, he rubbed out his writings on the ground with his foot. Sakura better thank me. I saved her from a great deal. Also, I saved my own butt. She is so innocent she would not lie about the cloud card business. Then where would I be? Well, now, he had so many secrets he would never be able to admit to anything. Dare. "How about making him confess his love?" Erika asked. "I don't have any love in my life currently," Syaoran interrupted. "Did you?" He was going to deny it, but maybe. Syaoran grinned wickedly. "I know. You see that single flower up there on the top of that tall tree? Well, go pick it for that person that you used to love." Everyone gasped. That was too hard, since the straight tree was one of the tallest and thinnest in sight, and it was had hardly any branches. "Are you too scared to do it?" Syaoran sneered. Snapping, Syaoran said, "I'll do it." First he took off his jacket and then took a deep breath. Climbing trees for him was as natural as going to sleep. He then grabbed the frail trunk and started up. The whole group watched him. Starting to sweat, Syaoran looked down. Everything seemed so far away. This was hard work, since he had to sort of wiggle up with nothing to grasp in the darkness. Finally, he was almost to the top. He saw the white blossom, pure and bright against the dark sky speckled with millions of stars. As he reached out, the trees swaggered. The trunk was weak, and the branch, which had the single blossom, was just out of reach. Syaoran reached further. The trees swayed. What am I doing? Am I actually picking this for a person that I used to like? Or is it because I don't want Syaoran to patronize me? In the bottom, a spectacle had gathered. The sensei called, "Li Syaoran, come down at once!" Syaoran was oblivious to this all. He never gave up. Shifting slightly, he put one foot on a weak branch and leaned a bit further out for the flower. Just as he grabbed the flower, the branch snapped, and with a crack, Sakura shrieked and everyone covered their eyes, and Melanie gasped. Yet, Syaoran wasn't the pride of his family for no reason. He didn't even lose his head. Swiftly, with his suppleness, he jumped off that tree to the branch of a lower one beside it. From there he did a flip and landed on the dirt ground on his feet, with perfect coordination. Everyone was awed and clapped their hands. Not for the first time. Girls sighed romantically, including Melanie and Eureka. Syaoran just frowned. Syaoran brushed the dirt off his clothes and suddenly felt a power of wildness soar inside him. Then he cringed. He didn't mean to jump off like that. After all, what normal junior high student could jump from tree to tree? Oh, God. Now people think I'm weirder than I already am. Terada-sensei was angry and scolded. "What were you doing, Li Syaoran? Do you know it's dangerous? You could have fell and broken your bones or died." Syaoran stared back with grave amber eyes clouded. "I've faced greater and more perilous death before. I can deal perfectly well with the beauty of nature, unmarred from evil forces. I've been climbing trees since I learned to walk. I apologize if I worried you, though." For some reason, the sensei felt compelled and shuddered. Ever since he had known him, Li Syaoran was not an ordinary kid. He knew too much, seemed too much for the average boy. "Well, don't do anything like that again." Soon the crowd wandered off, and the original group gathered by the fire again. They were silent for a while. Melanie said reproachfully, "That dare was too dangerous." "I'm fine, Melanie, it was nothing," Syaoran said carelessly. Eureka asked, "Well, what happened to the flower?" Syaoran unclenched his fist to reveal a crushed, yet beautiful pale flower. Tomeo asked significantly, "So, who are you going to give it to?" "I told you I don't like anyone anymore." "You said you'll give it to the person you used to like," Syaoran murmured. Looking up, Syaoran stared into Sakura's eyes, which reflected the flickering flames. His lips curved in a sad, whimsical way, though Sakura found it hard to see exactly in the dark. Then he threw the flower into the fire. They could see the dark outline burn and crumble into ashes. Suddenly, Sakura shivered. Briefly, Syaoran stood up. "Well, I'm tired. I'm going." Something had happened during the past few minutes, and everyone sat silently for a moment. The wind howled, snuffling the fire. They headed back to their own tents. The game wasn't finished. That night, Sakura was sleepy and snuggled inside the sleeping bag. An owl hooted and bats fluttered around in an uncanny way. She squirmed in discomfort. "Are you guys sleeping?" she asked. "No, I hate this place. I can't sleep because of the noise," Melanie grieved. "Melanie-chan, what were you talking about in the Truth or Dare?" Tomeo asked. "None of your business." Man, what did she say? Syaoran is a fool? Oh, I wish I was home, or that Syaoran was here. He always makes me feel better. Eventually, they all fell into sleep. Sakura tossed and turned. The next morning, Sakura woke up just before dawn. Scrambling to put on her shoes, she walked out of the tent. She heard some distant whacking and panting noises, and in the dim light she walked through the forest as she pulled her hair back from her face. There, as she thought, Syaoran was practicing kicks and punches against a sturdy tree trunk. Quietly, she watched from under a shaded tree. Syaoran continued to punch the gnarled tree trunk with his bare fist. Without turning around, he asked, "What are you doing here?" Instead of answering, she said, "That must hurt." "Not if you get used to it, like I have." "Do you always do this?" Practice? You must be very diligent.
Well, not exactly. I'm just trying to keep in shape. Wiping his head with a towel, he turned around and walked towards her.
You're lucky you're so good at fighting. I never learned.
Do you want to learn? I'll teach you sometime.
Really? I would love to learn.
Well, at your service, anytime.
Thanks. How'd you know it was me? Sakura asked curiously.
Almost chuckling, he said, Don't I always know? Anyway, what are you doing up so early? It'll be hours before anyone wakes up.
I just felt like it.
She smiled.
Maybe it's the mountain air.
Mountain air indeed. I didn't sleep 1 wink last night.
You did too. You dragged your sleeping bag out and slept outdoors.
How'd you know?
I heard you. I couldn't sleep last night either.
Did ghost haunt you?
Hoi, of course not. I just couldn't. Oh yes, thank you for helping me in the Truth and Dare last night. I don't know what I would have done without you if you didn't write out that thing about Yukito-san in Chinese characters.
It's all right. I had to help you or else my own identity would have been ruined as well. Or you might have been haunted by ghosts forever if you lied. Somehow, your business became my business whether I wanted it or not.
With the last sentence, they remained silent for a while. Resuming his practice, Syaoran started doing push-ups. Sakura stretched also. There was to be a long walk ahead of them that day, so she wanted to get ready. Suddenly she stopped and blinked. She was certain she felt a flash of power. Maybe she was mistaken. Shaking her head, she brushed it aside. 100. Syaoran finished his push-ups and sprang up. Mysteriously, he said, What trouble will await today? I hope there is nothing. Not here.
Who knows?
Syaoran tied his shoelace again.
Hey, you said you wanted to learn how to fight. How about right now? There's still an hour or so before the others wake up.
Sure. What do I do?
First, tie your hair back and roll up your sleeves. You better take off that vest as well. It'll slow down movement. Take a deep breath and get into position.
So Sakura began her first lesson in hand-to-hand combat. Syaoran was an impatient, yet good teacher. Sakura probably learned more about fighting in an hour than most people did in a month. No, when you punch, you have to make a fist with your thumb out. If you tuck it in, you might break it when you hit someone hard. See? Look at my fist when I punch. Demonstrating, Syaoran showed a thunder punch with a tight fist. Shaking damp hair from his eyes, he said, Repeat. Hoi. Panting, Sakura repeated the punching straight drill for the 100th time. Oh, boy, did she have respect for others who could do it for hours. Her arms were aching, and she was already beat. Luckily, she was already athletic and nimble from before. Even though her arms were throbbing, she continued the drill, for she did not want Syaoran to think that she would give up after the first lesson. Again, punch with your knuckles and hit straighter with more force. Oh, maybe I'm driving her too hard. Still, Syaoran was filled with respect for Sakura's ability to go on. She was pretty good for a beginner. Finally, he said, Okay, that's enough for today. Wow, I didn't know this was so hard.
Well, you did say you wanted to learn.
I don't regret it. Well, later on I won't, but right now I do. Sakura shook her glossy bangs, framing her face, and retied her hair. She looked up uneasily at the sky with grayish clouds swirling together. The birds had ceased to sing, and the forest was unusually silent. With a sudden draft of forceful wind, a tree branch started to crack. Watch out! Syaoran shouted. Sakura stared up just to see a great tree branch was crashing down right above her. Paralyzed, she stood rooted to the spot. Quickly, Syaoran jumped up and knocked her down with him, and they rolled over together to the side. The branch crashed with a thud on the spot where Sakura had stood just a moment ago, arousing a cloud of dust. If it had been a second too late, she would have lain there, crushed underneath the force. For a moment, Sakura lay on the dirt floor to catch her breath. Her heart was thumping, but she couldn't get up because Syaoran was entangled with her. The dust settled over them. Without realizing it, she reddened. He's holding my arms so tight. I can't move or breathe. Why doesn't he let go? He doesn't even care about me.
Syaoran sighed in relief since they were both safe. To his annoyance, his head was mashed against Sakura's hair, which smelled like sweet fragrance of spring flowers. He was still gripping her arms tightly, and he felt as if he had been holding his breath. He had an impulse to just close his eyes and just lie on the soft ground. Nature suited him. Wait, why am I gripping Sakura so tightly? She's safe now. Why isn't she moving away? But I can't let go. I feel as if I let her go, I'll never see her again. It's been so long since I've been this close to her, held her in my arms. God, I have to get up.
Syaoran! A cutting voice rang through the forest. Melanie emerged from the trees to see the shocking sight of Syaoran entwined with Sakura on the ground. Lee, Syaoran, what are you doing? More like, what are you doing with her? Abruptly, he sprang up with a half blush and straightened his shirt. Sakura sat up, still dazed at what had happened. Frowning, Melanie circled her. Melanie, it's not what you think. The branch. Syaoran broke off. Melanie glared at him warily. You see, the branch, it cracked, and she was underneath it, and I kind of saved her. Yeah, that's what happened. Wait, why do I have to explain the story to her? I did nothing wrong. This is stupid. Am I supposed to believe that? Melanie asked. It had been a different situation. She would have been inclined to laugh at the blushing and stammering Syaoran. It was funny to watch him get all flustered. He managed to be so cute. Do I ever lie? Syaoran was back to himself again, and the angry scowl look took over his face. He was almost composed now. Yes, you do. You never tell me anything and do things without me. It's 'cause you never wake up early enough. Forget it. But what am I supposed to think when you are with her, holding her in the middle of the forest? Melanie, don't get hysterical. Why am I getting hysterical? Who just disappeared? Melanie-chan, it's true that Lee-kun saved her from being crushed under the branch. Tomeu slipped from behind a tree. I videotaped the whole scene. Then she blushed. See? Now that things are back to normal, there are so many things to videotape. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, what fun it'll be to record Sakura fighting from now on, especially with Lee-kun as a teacher. Syaoran muttered under his breath. Oh, great. Now this whole scene is videotaped. Oh, why didn't I let go of her immediately? Oh, I'm always such a fool. Melanie turned her head. Whatever. But you, Sakura-chan, don't go near my fiancé. I don't understand what you two are doing here in the first place. We were exercising, training, whatever you call it. Wait a minute. Why am I saying we? She invaded my privacy. I came here by myself. Anyway, what I came to say was, come have breakfast. Melanie stomped back to the tents. Weakly, Sakura smiled up. That was a close call with the tree branch. My head is still swirling. Well, thank you again, Lee-kun. You always manage to save me at the worst times. Sometimes I don't know what I'd do without you. Okay, the sensei announced after breakfast. Get into your groups and choose which track you want to follow. Remember to keep in mind that you have to follow the trail. Don't wander off into the woods and get lost. Well, have fun. Sakura's group gathered. Tomeu, Melanie, Arika, Eran, and Syaoran. What trail do you want to follow? What about Trail C? Tomeu asked. Everyone agreed. As they started up the mountain pass, Sakura was jumpy with the beautiful surroundings. They were supposed to collect nature items and write about them in their notebooks. Sakura kneeled down and picked a swaying violet flower from the ground. Tomeu taped her. Melanie just stood, wrinkling her nose at nature. Ugh, disgusting. Look at these bugs crawling around. Erika joined, running a finger through her fluffy, wavy hair that curled on her shoulders. I know. They're creepy. Oh, that flower on that tree is so beautiful, Sakura pointed, and she was awed by nature. Immediately, Eran tiptoed and plucked the vivid blossom for her with a smile. Sakura accepted it with a blush. From the background, Syaoran clenched his fists and glowered. Then he stood alert. The ground rumbled for a moment. Is it an earthquake? Tomeu asked. I don't know. Sakura cried out, Look Look at the sky! The sky was starting to get overcast and dark clouds massed together. A deep rumbling of thunder echoed through the woods. A storm? Is there time to get back to the tents? Erika asked. Great, a storm. No, we have to run for shelter or something before we all get soaked, Syaoran said. Few raindrops started to plop down on them. Come on! They all started to follow Syaoran. Rain started to pour harder. They blindly ran down the path. Look, is that a cave up there? Tomeo asked. Yes, let's get there, Sakura said as she squinted through the rain. Melanie said dubiously, It's awfully steep. Do we have to climb up? There's no other choice. Sakura took the lead and started to climb up the slippery rocks. The others followed. Erika cautiously climbed up as well. What kind of state are we in? She nagged. Suddenly she slipped on a slippery stone. Ow! Erika slumped on the floor. Everyone gathered around her. My knee. Syaoran pushed his way through and took out a handkerchief. Quickly he bent down and dabbed gently at the blood and bound Erika's knee up tightly. Here, I tied it up so it won't bleed until we get to the cave. Do you think you'll be able to walk up there? I'll put some medicine on it when we get there. Syaoran looked up at Erika through the damp chestnut veins that hung into his eyes. Erika blushed and sat with her heart thumping. A new type of feeling flooded through her as she sat on the wet ground. Her bright eyes gazed up starrily as she stammered. Clearing her throat, Melanie said, Let's go before we all get completely soaked. Tomeo, Sakura helped Erika up and leaned her against them as they walked up to the cave. Achoo! Oh, I'm all wet. Erika slumped onto the dry cave floor. Melanie plopped down next to Syaoran and squeezed the water out of each side of her soaking hair. Syaoran rummaged through his bag and took out some ointment and a bandage. Gently, he untied his handkerchief and rubbed some ointment on Erika's scraped knee. Then he bandaged it with white gauze. Erika gazed at his supple hands, the hand that wielded the Li clan sword. Melanie was disgusted by the way Erika was flushing over Syaoran. Not that she said anything. After he finished, Syaoran lay back and gazed out at the pouring rain. Sakura crept up to the end of the cave and sat there. Luckily, it was one of those caves with a shallow back. If it were one that had a dark, endless back, she shuddered at the thought. Another thunder rumbled, and she clenched her eyes and covered her ears. Tomeo said worriedly, I hope it stops raining soon. We'll have to get back. Syaoran said, Do you think that is our only problem? We are lost. Lost? Sakura squeaked. Yes. In our hurry to find shelter, I believe we ran off the trail. I have no clue where we are right now. Lost? What are we going to do? All the stories about ghosts flooded her. There's no need to panic. When it stops raining, we'll find a way out. Oh my gosh. We're lost after all those warnings. Oh no. Sakura trembled at the consequences. Lines cleaved on Syaoran's forehead as he pondered. Erika frowned. Syaoran, what do you mean by saying we are lost? Don't worry, sister dear. We'll find our way back, Syaoran replied. Cursed storm of all times. There has to be a storm just now. It's all right. We'll still send one of our powers out. Then we can always find our way back. Let's raise the level one step higher today. They are improving. Sure. Whatever you wish, sister. So what should we send out today? What about the... Around the blazing flame, the hour has struck, that they will call each other's name, bestowed from the star is all the luck, to lean on each other with the bond of trust, and conquer the evil that they will leave their hopes in dust.